Boy, oh boy, Jullian Stavreas from Opal Empire and Jewellery has some incredible material. Welcome back to the channel. Now today we are going to work on another one of Jullian's Belemnites. A little squid fossil that turned into an opal, and this one turned into not just an opal, but an opal with an absolutely beautiful multicolor. And this is quite a nice example. It looks like it gets pretty broad in the center there. The way these form, I guess that's pretty common, but this color is anything but common. This is gem grade material. You can see here it's still got a bit of crust on it, but even there it's trying to come through. Now the sand situation is a bit like a previous one we've done. I've already done a couple of these on the channel, so feel free to go back and check those out. But you can see here it's got a bit of a jagged end. Now one of them I did a nice jagged end finish, so it actually looked like it was still a nice jagged end, but it was actually nice and smooth so it wouldn't damage any of my Nova points when I'm polishing. So I'm going to try to do that again if I can remember how. I think some of these sand lines going up the spine of this thing is probably not going to come out. Everything else though looks pretty easy. That line there again, they get these creases, these vertical lines through them of sand every now and then, and they don't typically come out. And I'll flash up a shot here now of the torch going through it. And we use the torch just to have a look at that central sand core, this one just here. So it looks pretty good, and it doesn't matter so much because we're just going to try to get the outside. The core is just interesting because if you get sand kind of leading into it, you know that they're probably going to link. That's about all it really tells you on a piece like this. So we're just going to try to get this beautiful color. Have a look at that. This beautiful color across as much of the surface as we can, except for those little sand lines. And to do that, we're gonna use the fine sintered diamond just to get rid of some of these high crusty parts just in here. But for most of this, because you can already see that it's starting to peek through the skin, we're probably just going to go straight with the Novas. 280, 600, 1200, 3000 grit Nova, and then finish it off with some cerium oxide. Let's do it. And we're off. 600 grit sintered diamond. I've gone with the pointy one because I want to interrogate some of those little bars of sand. And it's just a nice one to use. It's a lot flatter as well, the surface. If you hold it on an angle, it's actually a really nice flat surface as opposed to the standard bullet point kind of shape one that I use. So I do like this one. It's always good to have a lot of different shapes, but you can see that we're just going to go across the entire surface. You just want to get it so that the haze is almost gone, and we'll show that at the end of this, where you're pretty happy to then switch over to the Novas. Of course, I'll be hitting all the edges. You'll see my fingers constantly rubbing a lot of these edges. You don't want to hit a jagged point, and you'll notice I'm dodging the chipped sections as well. Because those are already fully revealed, we just don't want to even touch them with the sintered diamond because there are going to be some deep scratches that you're going to have to remove, and it's going to take a lot of time. So just keep going, hit all the surfaces, make them nice and smooth, and then this is it post-sintered. So you can see that it just had that nice little light haze, and then I'm happy to go to the 280 grit Nova, working on the edges a lot. And for this type of material, you just want to get everything set with the 280. Sometimes I say that you can leave it up for the 600, but honestly, you've really got to do it with the 280 on this kind of piece. It's just a lot more, you've got a lot more control. The 600, you can be waiting for a really long time to get rid of even the smallest imperfection. And you just want to clean it all up to the final point with the 280 grit. You can see that a lot of the colors coming through at this point, but you've still got that nice little fog over the top. The bottom was pretty, well, it's snapped off, isn't it? So it's pretty exposed, but you want to hit everything, even the exposed parts now. So those chipped areas, I still want to hit them, and then I'm going over it with the texter and just drawing a few squiggles. The squiggles don't mean that there's huge problems, but I just like to cover the area. You'll see in a second when I start carving what the text is really trying to highlight. But you can see just looking over it all, there's some sand parts that I haven't textured. They're quite obvious to see. But if we go quickly rub over this texture line here, you'll see what the texture line was actually trying to highlight. And that is these little spots. See those little pits? So I dry the stone, I look at it under magnification, see these little pits, and then just texture the entire area, and the texture will actually seep into those little pits. And then you just work on it until they're gone. It's kind of like using a stencil. It's a little bit cheating, but it's also a nice little tool to have. And you'll notice I'm not drilling the dots themselves. You have to work the whole area to get it nice and smooth, nice and even. You don't want craters all over your stone, especially when you're working a fossil. You want to retain that shape, but you also don't want to work too much. So you don't want to carve too much if you don't have to. And it's nice and foggy at this point. You can see the color. After the nova, you should always be able to see the color. You shouldn't see scratches. You should only see fog. And then we do the full range. So instead of showing each of them individually, we'll just have them up like this. And you can see I've got the 600 nova, 1200, 3000, and then the super cerium oxide to finish it off. And for all of them, the method is exactly the same. You just want to go across the whole area. Look at them dry between each stage before you jump up, and you'll be able to see the difference that you've made. Make sure that the 280 remnants are gone by the 600, and then likewise for the 1200, 3000. Some people say you can skip the 3000, and I do agree with them, but I find that it's a lot more efficient to use the 3000 on more complex carvings. So as soon as it's uneven, I always use a 3000 before I go to cerium oxide. Otherwise you have to spend a long time on the cerium oxide. And even at the end of this video where I record the final stone, I mentioned that I'm not overly happy with the polish, and that's because I did rush the cerium oxide a little bit. So I will be going back and touching that up again, because you can spend a long time on just a normal cab. But when you're doing a carving like this, where there's uneven surfaces, to get into all the dips and nooks and crannies, you really do need to take the time. And actually in this stone, I probably took a lot more time in the nooks and crannies and less time on the flatter surfaces. Boy, oh boy. Jullian Stavreas from Opal Empire and Jewellery has some incredible material. This is top quality Opal Belemnite. This is some of the nicest crystal I've seen in quite a while. And I'm pleasantly surprised that I was wrong for once, and it was actually a good wrong. Those sand spiny lines that I see in this material all the time, they actually came out incredibly easy. Now, you'll see here across the face, you can see from the flashes of light how uneven it is. That's the area that had all those chips in it at the start, which is a bit disappointing, but at least it gave us the hint that there's a lot of gem material underneath, which is what we've revealed. And it's got interesting kind of broader patterns, and then it goes to that fiery pinfire. Kind of like Ethiopian Opal has those fingers, as Pulitzer Opal calls it, and then it terminates to a honeycomb pattern. Unfortunately, we don't get a honeycomb pattern, we get more of a pinfire pattern, and then, yeah, a whole scattering of colour over the entire surface. A surprising amount of red. It comes through on the camera really well at the moment as well, so there's a fair bit of warmness just over in this corner, and then the other side's a little bit greener blue, less red and yellow, but still, incredible stone. And of course, having not cut it aggressively, we haven't lost a lot. We'll just flash up some photos of what it was at the start and what it was at the end. And it's pretty much what you'd expect. Even in the sand pocket, you can see that there's little bits of opal, which I haven't really seen all that often. Not this much of it anyway. Maybe there's a speck or two, but there is actually quite a few little dots of opal scattered amongst that plug, which is kind of cool. And I'm going to give it a little bit more of a shine up, just because I can, and because I don't think it's quite taken the perfect polish over this side, you can see there. So I'm going to hit it again a little bit, but yeah, I went from thinking that this would be a nice little specimen piece to thinking that this is actually some really top quality material. I mean, look at the end piece of it as well. It's just amazing. I wish this was just, you know, an extra 5 centimeters in length and goes to its nice little point at the end, and if it did that, we would be on some serious cash. But this is already an incredible piece, and Jullian, I reckon this will be the best of the bunch. Though I'm not completely finished with the others, so we will see. And yeah, the only way to do that is to end this video and start getting on to the next. If one of the others that I'm working on at the moment turn out like this, we are going to be jumping for joy for sure. And I reckon I'm going to... Actually, I can't celebrate. I've been working on this for a long time and I'm pretty tired. So I'll catch you guys in the next video where, who knows, we might be doing another one of these. But whatever we're doing, I'll see you there.